YouTube, this is Little Rocker Cutie 2005, also known as Andre, back here with ya. And I wanted to do a response to a video I saw on Allie Walker's channel on how I got started collecting movies. And of course, I've got 14 years on Allie. I guess most of you know I'm 29 years old, so I have kind of a long history with collecting movies. So I'll probably start from as far back as I can remember, which would probably be from, I'd say my earliest movie memory probably comes at the age of 3. And I can remember being hooked on 3 movies in particular: An American Tail, Lady and the Tramp, and Cinderella. Now these were 3 movies that I had my mom rent for me on a constant basis. And at one point here in Houghton Lake, we had like 10 different places where you could rent VHS tapes from. Now you gotta remember, this was during the 80s and VHS was prevalent everywhere. So, I mean, it didn't matter what grocery store you went into, they had movies for rent. We had like 7 or 8 different video stores all over town. So, and I mean, every place you went into just had a different selection of movies. But another memory I have from being 3 years old is actually having my first experience with a horror movie. My mom was a big fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, and she still is, which, as you probably know, is where I got the love of the series from. But I remember her renting Nightmare on Elm Street 3 for the first time. And I'm sure all of you know the scene where Kristen's in the Elm Street house, and she's in that room with all the books, and that Freddy Snake pops up from the floor and starts eating her up. Oh my god, that just scared the hell out of me. But it was like, oh my gosh, that's just so... I had nightmares for weeks after that, and it's just one of those things I'll never forget. But now on to a little bit later in my life. From the age of 4, probably from about 4 to 7, my mom would rent me a video player every weekend with some movies of my own, while her and her partner rented their own bunch of movies, and I'd be in my room watching my movies, and they'd be out in the living room watching theirs. Of course, they'd always rent me cartoons and stuff, so some of the ones I can remember are stuff like The Little Mermaid, All Dogs Go to Heaven. I remember getting hooked on The Secret of NIMH at that age, and I still love that movie as much as I love All Dogs Go to Heaven. I still love those 2 movies. They are probably 2 of my favorite animated movies to this day. I even still love An American Tail, even though I have not been able to find it on DVD anywhere. But I think, yeah, when I was about 5 or 6, I started staying weekends with my grandma. And like I said, we'd always rent a video player and a bunch of movies. Well, being with my grandma, of course, rules were different. So I was allowed to watch pretty much whatever I wanted at that age, and I saw some of the oddest stuff. I mean, my grandma was into movies like Porky's. She was into a ton of horror movies. I think that's partially where I got my love of horror from, along with my mom. So I saw a lot of different stuff. I mean, I saw Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, for the first time at probably 7 years old, and that scared me. I saw Halloween when I was 8, and I actually rented that on my own based on my grandma's recommendation. My mom's partner at the time recommended the Chucky movies, so I rented the first 3 and watched them back to back. Scared the hell out of me. I remember going over to friends' houses to play, and anybody who had a My Buddy doll, I would make them put that damn thing away because it reminded me too much of Chucky. And it's like, what the heck? I mean, if this doll is enough to creep you out in a movie, imagine what a My Buddy could do. But at the age of 7, I got my own VCR for the first time, and that was when I started buying and renting my own VHS tapes. And I think one of my first ones was probably Beauty and the Beast, which I still love to this day, and I've never been able to find the DVD. We still have the video here in the house, but I think my mom's got it packed up somewhere, so I don't know where it is, but I still have a bunch of my Disney movies from when I was a kid. Like, I have the Lion King. I know I've still got Beauty and the Beast. I've still got quite a few. There are some of them that I did replace with DVDs later on, but I collected a lot of VHS when I was younger, and at some points I would sell some off to get more, but I was always watching movies. I started collecting at an early age. I had my own little wooden rack with closable doors that I could keep my VHS tapes in, and they wouldn't get all dusty or anything like that. They would all stay in good shape. But one of the movies I remember having a really good experience with was Jurassic Park. And I think that was one of the first ones that one of my mom's friends gave me, because I was just in love with that movie. And it was one I could not get enough of. And as I got older, I started getting into more horror and stuff like that. But I kind of branched out from my mom in terms of horror, and I got more into like Evil Dead. I was more into the Halloween sequels. I got into Friday the 13th. There's a few of them that I can't remember, but I remember my grandma being into this one called Mother's Day, and it was this old trauma release. Now, I do not know what my grandma saw in this movie, because it was like a rape revenge movie, and at a young age, I mean, I must have been like 9 or 10 when I saw this movie with her, and it just shocked me, because I had never seen anything like that before, and to this day, I've never seen that movie again, and I don't think I ever will, because I'm not a trauma fan, so it's not like they're my favorite company. But at that time, Full Moon was getting really big with like Puppet Master and stuff like that, so I would always rent their movies, and I got hooked on this one called Arcade, which was about a killer video game, and at the time I was really into video games too, which I still am. I mean, I have the PS2 in my room that I still play on a regular basis, but that's neither here nor there. But this conversation's about movies, so I saw Arcade and I just loved it, and I think, let's see, I started collecting a lot more VHS as I got a little bit older, from like 10 to about 14. I had a whole bookshelf with like, it had 3 different shelves, and I had the tapes in so that the top labels were facing out, so I could do 2 rows on each shelf, and the middle shelf was all my horror movies. So I had like Evil Dead, I actually had Friday the 13th recorded, because they had a marathon one night. I think it was on, I want to say HBO or something like that. I don't remember us having HBO for very long, because it was a pay channel, and of course we were on disability, which we still are, so it was very rare that I could buy VHS tapes at full price. But once the prices started coming down is when I really started buying, and then when I discovered like used, like places that sold used movies, that was where I went to buy my movies at. And then at the age of probably 15 or 16, I got my first PS2, and I started collecting DVDs. The first DVD I remember getting was Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie, which is actually still in my collection to this day. And since then, my love of collecting and watching movies, it hasn't stopped. I really enjoy just watching movies. I mean, I can even agree with what Allie said in her video about how she likes to just sit on the floor and look at her movies, just look at each one. I do that from time to time myself. Even if I'm not going to watch one, I can sit there and just look at my movies and decide what I'm going to watch at any particular point. It's just, and Allie, I'll tell you what, I don't think that's weird at all, because I do it too. But I've just been a hardcore movie fan from an early age, and I've always loved collecting and watching movies. I still do it to this day, as you see, you know, from my updates and everything. But I really don't know what else to say on this subject, but I will be back with more of my collection overview pretty soon, and I may do this shelf over here behind me later today, but hopefully you all stay tuned for that. And once again, this is Little Rocker Cutie 2005, also known as Andre. I'm hoping you enjoyed my little history of movie collecting and why I got started, but I'm telling you to enjoy life, enjoy some Skittles, enjoy some Starburst, and in the immortal words of Chris, eat some chicken, and I'll see you later.